Hey there, my name is Jeremy Newton, and today I will be teaching about the first of the 9 medieval crusades. Now, this isn't exactly a very, good video. The information is all accurate and correct, but bear with me as we go through my horrible amateur video. So, for you teachers out there using this video for a lesson, I just want to say thank you for you choosing my video. And I have also included an overview and purpose. So, students will understand facts about the people, events, and battles of the First Crusade and be able to answer questions about the people, events, and battles of the First Crusade. Now, the First Crusade is divided up into 4 distinct parts: the years before the Crusade, the People's Crusade, the actual First Crusade, and the years after the Crusade. So, let's start at the beginning. Before we begin our lesson, we must ask ourselves, what were the Crusades? The Crusades were wars fought by European Christians against the Middle Eastern Muslims for Holy Land in the Middle East, most notably Jerusalem. But the cause for the Crusades started nearly 2 centuries before the actual Crusades. In the 900s CE, the Byzantine Empire began conquering territory ruled by the Turkish Empire. Starting in 1030, the Seljuk Turks of the Turkish Empire began retaking territory stolen by the Byzantines. This wasn't a problem until the 1090s, when the Turks were practically on the back doorstep of Constantinople, capital of the Byzantine Empire. In 1095, Emperor Alexis I Comnenus of the Byzantine Empire sent a delegation to Piacenza, Italy, home of Pope Urban II. The delegation was asking the Pope for help in repelling the Turks. As it happens, Urban II saw a chance not only to rid the Byzantine Empire of the Turks, but also to reconquer a Holy Land that the Turks had ruled over since the fall of the Roman Empire. As such, Urban II called for the First Crusade. While the Pope was gathering his forces, many people wanted to go on a crusade themselves. A man named Peter the Hermit was one of these people. He was well known and claimed he had a letter from God saying for him to lead a crusade, even though Pope Urban didn't know about this. Peter the Hermit went around Europe collecting like-minded people, mostly peasants and low-ranking knights. By April of 1096, he was leaving Cologne, Germany with an army of 40,000. Between April and August, these crusaders slaughtered several thousand Jews on their way to Constantinople. In May 1096, the crusaders reached Zemun, Hungary. Seeing the armor of crusaders who had went on ahead in Zemun made the crusaders suspicious. It didn't help that relations between Peter and the mayor of Zemun were strained at best. The crusaders ended up attacking Zemun, murdering 4,000 Hungarians. The Crusaders reached Sofia, Bulgaria on July 12, 1096. Between Zemun and Sofia, the Crusaders had lost 10,000 men, a quarter of their original number. In Sofia, the Crusaders met their Byzantine escort. They arrived in Constantinople on August 1st. Emperor Alexis was unprepared for these Crusaders. The Crusaders the Pope promised him weren't due until spring of 1097. Emperor Alexis also saw that these crusaders were a lost cause, so he refused to send along any Byzantine troops with them. All he could do was ship them off to Asia Minor as fast as he possibly could. By the time the crusaders reached Asia Minor, Peter the Hermit had lost much of his control. Around mid to late August, Peter decided to return to Constantinople. His army went ahead under the leadership of a man named Geoffrey Burrell. The Crusaders were marching towards Nicaea, but were cut off by Turks at the village of Drakon. The more experienced Turkish army made quick work of the Crusaders. Less than 10% of the Crusader army of 30,000 lived. The First Crusade went much better than the ill-prepared People's Crusade. The First Crusade is also known as the Prince's Crusade because it was led by 4 princes: Hugh I of Vermandois, Godfrey of Bouillon, Raymond IV of Toulouse, and Beaumont of Taranto. The 4 armies, one under the lead of each prince, left Europe in August 1096. They arrived in Constantinople in different times between November 1096 and April 1097. Together, they were a collective force of 30,000 infantry and 5,000 cavalry. This time, Emperor Alexis was more prepared for the Crusaders. He was able to supply the Crusaders with food and an additional 2,000 infantry. They quickly headed off for Asia Minor to begin the First Crusade. Nicaea was a city previously ruled by the Byzantines, but had since become a stronghold for the Turkish leader Kilji Arslan I. Kilji was away when the Crusaders began the siege of Nicaea in April 1097. Kilji speedily returned to Nicaea, but had underestimated the strength of these Crusaders and was forced to retreat. The Crusaders continued to siege the city, but were unable to succeed because Nicaea was completely surrounded by a lake. To finally break the city, Emperor Alexis sent ships to the Crusaders, using logs to roll them over land. The Turks surrendered at the mere sight of these ships, knowing they had been outwitted. The siege was over by June. Following the siege of Nicaea, the Crusader army decided to split into two groups, one led by Godfrey and one led by Bohemond. They were to meet up at the city of Dorylaeum. However, when Bohemond reached Dorylaeum, he found a surprise attack waiting for him, courtesy of Kilji Arslan. Bohemond and his army were able to form a tight defensive knit that held off the Turks just long enough for Godfrey's army to arrive. Godfrey and Bohemond's army made quick work of the Turks and forced Kilji to retreat once again. In October of 1097, the Crusaders laid siege to Antioch, which laid halfway between Constantinople and Jerusalem. The Crusaders didn't have enough forces to completely surround the city, so it was able to stay partially supplied. Because of this, the Crusaders were besieging the city for 8 straight months. In March, relief came in the form of the Saxon Crusade, which brought food and soldiers from Europe. In May, Antioch finally fell. However, Turkish armies came and besieged the former besiegers. Ironic, ain't it? However, due to the Turkish leader's inability to command his army, his troops became confused and were able to be repelled by the Crusaders. Bohemond claimed that he ruled Antioch, although this was disputed by the other princes. The Crusades had to be delayed for an entire year before the princes had reached an agreement. By the time the Crusaders had reached Jerusalem, they had suffered heavy losses. Only about 10,500 infantry and 1,500 cavalry remained of the mighty army. Since they had such insufficient numbers, they decided to take Jerusalem by assault, not by siege as they had Antioch. The first assault was in early June. The Crusaders managed to get past the outside wall, but were repelled by Muslim soldiers and an inner wall. After the spectacular failure of the first assault, a priest by the name of Peter Desiderius claimed he had a divine vision of Bishop Adhemar, the spiritual leader of the crusade, who had died at Antioch. Adhemar told Desiderius that the soldiers needed to fast and then march in procession around the outer wall, just like in the biblical story of Joshua at Jericho. After a 3-day fast, the Crusaders marched around Jerusalem on July 8th. They ended at the Mount of Olives, where Peter the Hermit preached to them. If you remember, Peter the Hermit went back to Constantinople before the massacre of the People's Crusade. He joined the First Crusade when the princes arrived in Constantinople. The final assault on Jerusalem began on July 13th. They divided into 2 parts. One part attacked the south gate, while the other part attacked the northern wall. On July 15th, a final push was ordered. The inner wall on the north side was captured. Panic ensued in Jerusalem, and in the wild panic, the defenders of the city abandoned their posts, and the Crusaders were allowed to enter. After the capture of Jerusalem, the Crusaders got wind of a Fatimid relief army coming from Egypt to retake Jerusalem. On August 10th, Godfrey took the remaining Crusaders to cut off the Fatimid army at Ascalon. The Fatimid army had between 30,000 and 50,000 soldiers. The exact amount is unknown. The Crusaders had only around 10,000 soldiers. On August 12th, Crusader scouts discovered the location of the Fatimid camp, which was promptly attacked and raided. The Fatimid army was caught unprepared and was slaughtered. The remainder of the army retreated inside Ascalon. Soon after, the leader of the Fatimid army retreated back to Egypt, and the remainder of the army surrendered. The Crusaders plundered Ascalon and returned to Jerusalem. The First Crusade was a victory for the Crusaders. The Crusaders reconquered land the Byzantines had lost to the Seljuks and established the states of Jerusalem, Tripoli, Edessa, and Antioch. The establishment of these territories eased the Seljuk hold on the Middle East. Crusaders that had gone all the way to Jerusalem returned to Europe as heroes. They, along with the Crusaders that died, were cleared of all sins by Pope Urban. However, the Seljuks were still a major power in the Middle East. By 1145, Edessa fell to the Seljuks, and by December of that year, Pope Eugene III had called for the Second Crusade. Thank you for watching my lesson on the First Crusade. Teachers, I hoped this helped you with your lesson, and students, I hoped this helped you with your studies. Watch my channel for more videos, including information lectures about the rest of the Crusades. Again, thank you for watching.